Okay, we got it all cleaned up, and we're going to put her back together now. We'll start with a slide. It'll be the easiest here. Firing pin is going to go back in. You need the little flat right here. I don't know if you can see. There's a flat right here, and that's got to point up towards the top of the slide when you put it in there. And when you get it in there, you might have to fight that firing pin stop there a little bit, but it shouldn't be too big deal. And you're going to take your safety selector here on this side, and we're rotated all the way over this way, like so, and you can put it back down on the safe position there, and that will allow you to take the other side, your detent, and slide it in. And when you get it in there, take a punch or a pick or anything like that and just kind of pop it in, and you can roll it down there. And then what you'll do is drop your extractor back in. And this is a little bit goofy sometimes, but usually it kind of just drops right in there. What I've done, typically what I'll do is I will take a punch or something and just push back in, and it should just kind of snap into place there. So you should have a pretty decent setup there for the extractor, and it should be in there without any issues. That's really all there is to the slide. Like I said, if you wanted to pull this side off, you can get in there and get that stop out of there, but it's not that big of a deal. It's a whole hell of a lot cleaner. I don't know if you can notice that it's much shinier and just not dirty. Set that over there. Take our frame, and this is kind of where things get a little bit more interesting. Now I guess we can put the barrel and guide rod assembly in there. First thing I'll do is I'm going to take the hammer and its pin, and we'll stick that guy down in there, and you just got to peek in, align its holes. Remember the mechanism here that has the ejector on it or whatever, it's got to be out of the way or you're not going to get that pin in the hole. And just kind of put it there and let that ride back on it. Like I said, that detents that pin in, keeps it from falling out on you. Next thing is we'll put trigger and trigger bar. We've got that big spring that was in there, and that will just slide right back up in its spot, and it'll stay there. It really helps if you put it in the correct direction. So when you put it in, make sure that it looks like that. So this part here is where the trigger itself will hang on to, and so the little hook needs to be facing the trigger when you put it in there. And when you drop that in, you can leave the trigger itself out if you want for the moment, and push our little mechanism, takedown mechanism there, and get underneath there. And at this point, you can take and push, let's see if you can find that spring just back until it detents into that hole, and then put your trigger in there and just slide it down. You'll pull it through, and you might have to wiggle it a little bit, but it should just pop in. From there, we're going to put this little guy in here, and that's what connects your trigger bar to your hammer and everything else there. And that will go in first because you need to put it at a slight angle when you stick it in there, and make sure that it catches on that trigger bar and that little groove there. And then you'll take your pin, and it should just slide in if you got the holes aligned correctly, which I must not have. Hold on. What's going on with that guy? There we go. That guy. And the reason it's easier to put that one in first and then come in behind with this one is because this has got to go up in here, and you want to start your pin, but you don't want to go all the way through yet because there's a spring that you need to have and put in place. So we're going to align this with its hole as such. And this little spring, I warned you, that would go flying out when you pull that little pin. I have found it easiest to when you have your pin started, what I do is I put the leg, both legs, into their corresponding slots, and I'll show you here in just a second on how I did that. I'm going to get this pin through it. Or not. You want to be a little bastard, don't you? I'm sure somebody out there's got some kind of brilliant way to do this without all the bullshit hassle, but that person is not me, so we're gonna sit here and dick with this until I get that in. You know, for as simple as this ought to be, it sure is a pain in the ass. Maybe I'll try and start this pin on the other side. Huh? What do you think? Think it'll work any better? Let's see. Hoop, Jude, god damn it. Oh, that motherfucker gone. She gone. The fuck. There it is. I'm going to take another little punch here, and I'm going to run it down the other side into the hole and see if we can't use it as a dummy slave pin kind of thing here. Well, maybe. Not quite as easy as I thought that was going to be, but we'll get her in there one way or another. Little tap, tap, taparoo. Tap, tap, tap. There we go. Now all this stuff should, I mean, in general, this should be the working mechanism, so. Okay, so what we were talking about when I was putting that spring in and that pin was the legs of that spring have to go into this little groove here on that first piece we put in, and then there's a leg here that has to fall into this little groove. And so the trouble I was having was pushing the spring down so it catches on in both of those grooves while trying to get the pin in. So I was having to put tension on it while I was doing all that, and that was the big bumblefuckery that I had going on there. Hammer strut, and it goes back in there, and there's a little groove inside the hammer on the back end of it that this kind of falls into, and it's relatively imperative that you get it in there or the gun just ain't gonna work. But it's pretty easy to get in. Slide in, slide your spring over. Remember our little retainer and mainspring housing. So there's a beveled side. I don't know if you can see if you can tell the difference here in the camera, but there's a beveled side to it. You can see that there's a minor bevel on it, and then the other side here is flat. This is the side that faces the spring, this flat side. You want this bevel so you can get the pin through the hole. What I'll do generally is just take it and roll it over, slide that in there, and you can take a punch or something and just kind of knock that spring over into the hole. And you should be able to, should be the operative word, get that pin started if you press down with just thumb pressure on that. And then from there, you may have to use the hammer and tap it in. You know what? I got a better idea. Third hand. Sometimes you need 4 or 5, but this time we only need 3, so we're gonna get that in there and fucking stupid hand. Just go in your hole. Too good for your hole. There we go. Fuck it. Bastard. Well, there's that. Let's see, put the slide. When you go to put it back together too, remember, put your little thing down, or it'll never quite go back together the way you want it to, and make sure that you're pretty well centered on this guy, because then it'll hang up and doesn't want to go in. Just like so. Pull it back just far enough to get your slide stop in, and bellissimo, you have gun. Safe. Bang. Other than that, it's the magazine. Follower. It's got to face this way. Drop it in. You got spring. Spring goes in. End plate. Remember, you got to get that kind of at a goofy angle to get it in there and started, but it'll pretty well retain itself. And then floor plate, magazine floor plate, and it'll just go in. Should be all she wrote. Pretty simple. Like I said, not really expensive guns, but they pretty much run. You rarely see them that don't work. They do have their quirks and problems, just like anything else. But for the price range, they're all right little pistols. This one, I'm probably going to do some kind of stupid work just for out of sheer curiosity. I might make some go faster cuts on the slide here, and I'll probably end up doing some Cerakote work on it. I don't know. We'll see. It's a project. Thanks for watching, guys. You got any comments, questions? Drop them down there in the bottom. Hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Give me a like. Share with your friends. If you got anything specific you guys might want to see, start writing me some lists. For the most part, I'm just using what comes through my shop to make these videos. But like I said, if there's anything specific, you really want to see, let me know, and I can keep an eye on it. I can make a list on my whiteboard and doing some of these teardowns, reassembles. You guys pretty soon here are actually going to start seeing some of the machine work and stuff that I do to fix guns and things like that. So, have a good one.